Hello everyone, and welcome to this episode, the 99th episode of the Ratliff Mandolins Weekly Production Diary. And this episode is going to be just a hodgepodge of several different things. I'm going to explain some business policies, and I'm going to tell you all about mandolin number 1 here and why it doesn't even have its fretboard glued on yet. And we're going to have some entries into the Luthier's yard sale. Some things that I've got laying around the shop here that I'd really like to just get rid of if I could. And of course we're going to try to keep up with the progress that's being made on the other mandolins in the batch, including mandolin number 10, which has its stain and some coats of clear lacquer on it, and the rest of them that we are either gluing Peghead Overlays on or putting the binding in the peg head. So a whole bunch of things that we can talk about or are going to talk about on this week's episode. So we're going to start with the first entry in the Luthier's yard sale category, which is a bunch of journals from the Guild of American Luthiers. Don't go away. I'll be right back after that to fill you in on mandolin number 1. I have 33 back issues of the American Luthiery magazine, which is the quarterly journal from the Guild of American Luthiers. Let me show you these. Now, if you don't know anything about it, the Guild of American Luthiers are about instrument building, and it's a guild of instrument builders, and I used to belong to it. These magazines here that they publish quarterly have all sorts of articles about bracing and violin scroll carving and how to do this and how to do that. Just all sorts of wonderful things in here. I've got them from 87, 86, and 89, and 91, and 92, and 93, 94, 95, all the way through to about the fall of 2000. Here I have 33 issues, and I got on their website. They wanted $16 a pop for their back issues, and I'm going to ask half that. $8 a piece. We'll buy these things and let me know what you're interested in, or let's work out some sort of deal and you can just take them all. Let me know where you live and I can give you a final price with the shipping and everything. That's item number 1 on the yard sale. So those are the magazines that I have as item number 1 on the Luthier's yard sale. Now let me explain some business policies to you and how they relate to this particular mandolin right here. A normal sale for me is I require a $500 deposit, and then I make the mandolin, and then I require the balance due, and then I will send the mandolin to the customer. That customer at that point has a 72-hour, 3-day period of approval. For any reason they don't like it, don't want to keep it, whatever, it doesn't matter to me, no questions asked. You send it back to me. It gets back here in as good shape as it arrived to you, and I will return your money happily, and we'll just wash your hands of the deal. Now, that works for a normal mandolin or a mandolin that just has maybe a few little custom things, you know, some added pearl or something like that. Then I can take that mandolin and just pass it right along, because I've got people standing in line and they'll be more than happy to take that particular mandolin. But if there's been some custom feature on this mandolin that would keep it from being something that somebody else might want, such as your name down the fretboard, then my policies change on that 72-hour approval period. In fact, I go ahead at that point before I do the work and ask for the entire amount for the mandolin, and you have forfeited your right to that 72-hour approval period. If I'm going to put your name on this or do something that makes it very hard to sell to someone else, it's yours. So this mandolin, and we've spoke about this mandolin before, it's an oval hole that the customer wants it to be green all over. He chose the stain and sent it to me, and it's a very, very bright green. So I decided that this kind of fell in that category. This is going to be a little hard to sell to somebody else. We're going to make this one of those non-refundable, non-returnable things. And so we've been waiting on the business end of that to be completed. So now we are going to go ahead and proceed. And the reason that I've held off at this particular stage is because I always finish underneath the fretboard extenders in the color that I think I'm going to stain this mandolin. And so this one had to be green, and I sure didn't want to glue that on there and then kind of get stuck with that thing. So that's where we're at right now. Everything's been taken care of. All the business end of things have been complete, and we're getting ready to glue a green fretboard extender on this mandolin. Tomorrow we will glue the fretboard on, and this mandolin will be brought up to the same stage of completion as all these other ones hanging in here, and that's kind of explains all that. Let's move on to yard sale item number 2. I have here a pretty interesting, unusual item. It is a mandolin pickup from probably the mid-50s. These things are called monkeys on a stick, and they're usually, or the big company that made them was Armand, but there were some knockoffs back in the 50s, and this is one of the knockoffs. It's a Kent, and it actually has Made in Japan stamped on the back. Let me give you a close-up view of it. Okay, this in itself is the pickup proper. The bridge sits right in this area right here. This actually attaches and clamps to the strings between the bridge and the tailpiece, and then this bar comes out here, and this pickup actually slips up under the strings about where you pick it, and so this gives you volume and your tone, and like I said, the bridge fits right in this kind of area right here. It takes an 1/8 inch jack into here, and I guess this is the original cord that makes 1/8 and 1/4 inch. That's the pickup that I have for sale. I'm going to ask $200 even for it, plus whatever the shipping charges would be. So there's the vintage mandolin pickup from the 50s. Let me know if you're interested, and we'll get your address and figure out shipping charges and all like that. So just get in touch with me. Let's go into the big room now and see how far we've got putting Peghead overlays on necks. Well, it would appear that I've been gluing up a whole lot of stuff here on the prop bar deck. Here are 2 mandolins with the Peghead overlays already glued on, but they're not trimmed down. Yesterday we glued the Peghead overlays on these 2. Obviously they're now in the same stage of construction as these, so all of 4 of these mandolins need to have the Peghead overlays trimmed down. And here is our trusty soon-to-be green mandolin. And so I think for the next little bit I'm going to glue the fretboard on this one and trim these down. And if there's any time left in the day, we are going to go into the smaller room and work on mandolin number 10. Not too far from having its final coats of lacquer shot on. So here we go. Okay, so here they are. These 4 mandolins that have had the Peghead overlay glued on. They're all ready to be trimmed up. And the last holdout for the Peghead overlays is the green mandolin that needs to have the fretboard glued on, and that's what we're going to take care of right now. Item number 3 in our Luthier's yard sale is this vintage Bixby Tailpiece. I took it off of a 1940s Gibson, but I don't think they made these things until early to mid 50s, and there's some things, if you research them on the internet, I think this one is probably somewhere between 62 and 70 or 71, so we're going to call it a mid to late 60s vintage Bixby Tailpiece. It's a B3, I think, and it's got all of the I don't have the mounting screws, but I do have the original spring, and everything seems to work very well. If you price them on the internet for the vintage stuff, seems like $3.99 is the magic number that most people are trying to sell these for. And you know what? I'll take half of that. I'll take $200 for this thing right here. And so let me know if you're interested in this vintage Bixby Tailpiece, and that is item number 3 in our Luthier's yard sale. And I think for the rest of the day I am going to sand on mandolin number 10 and see if I can't get another coat of finish on it. And perhaps the last coat's a finish, we'll see. Item number 4 are these Banjo Tailpieces. Now, I've had these things here 20 or 25 years. They come out of a music store. They're new, but they've been passed back and forth from shelf to shelf in the shop, and there's some surface scratches on them, and they're kind of dirty and dusty, but they are indeed new. There's 2 of this kind, 2 of this kind, and 1 each of this kind. Now, if you look up the prices for each of these, they range from $40 or $50 to $70 or $80 a piece. And I'm thinking that I would really like to get rid of these things, and I'll take $100 for all 6 of them, plus the shipping charges, and you can have 6 brand new Banjo Tailpieces. Today, and today is Wednesday of the week, I am going to get to shoot the final coats of finish on mandolin number 10. It has all been shot, sanded, shot, sanded, shot, sanded with finer and finer grit sandpaper, and we are ready now to put the final coats on, and then I'm going to hang it on the wall and let it cure for a couple of weeks before we polish it out, put strings on it, and send it to its final customer. But for now, we're just thrilled to bits that we're going to get to shoot the last coats of finish on it. Now, what I have here is item number 5 in the Luthier's yard sale. This is my father's dobro, believe it or not. It's a 1934 or 1936 dobro. He played it for years. I'm not a dobro player. It's in good shape and it sounds marvelous, and I'd like to sell the thing. What seems to be a good average price for these things on the market today is about $2,000, and that's what I'm going to ask for this one. So if anybody wants to see a little bit more, I'll be happy to put more in a video if you want to see it, or you ever want to come by here and take a look at it and sit and play it, you're welcome to. It's either a 1934 or 1936 Regal built dobro, and I'm going to ask $2,000 for it. Number 1, the oval hole mandolin that's going to be stained green, is the last one to have its fretboard glued on, and it is ready to come out of this jig now and move into the other room. I imagine the rest of my day will be spent cleaning up the Peghead Overlays. There are 5 of them, I think, with overhang and needs to be all trimmed and cleaned and gotten ready for the next steps. And I bet you that will take me the rest of my day. Hey, I've got about 4 or 5 minutes of good video of me trimming this peg head down, and so I'm going to run it as a separate video bonus footage, and it's going to say be titled something along the lines of episode 99 bonus footage. So if you want to see this whole job of me trimming this peg head, check out that video. I'll link to it at the end of this video. Item number 6 for the yard sale is a early 50s Sears Craftsman Planer. Absolutely works wonderfully, just as good as it did when it was brand new. If you want to do any kind of research, look up alien head planers, because I guess the shape of the thing reminds people of the alien in the movie Alien, so it's kind of apparently gotten the nickname of an alien head planer. I'm asking a lot less than most of the ones I looked at on the internet. I'm going to ask $150 for it, and that's not only for the planer but for the stand and the motor and everything else. It works just fine. I'm not going to ship it anywhere. You'll have to come and get it. It's a pretty heavy rascal, and I'm not going to fool with shipping it. So if anybody is within driving range and they want a good workable 1950s 6-inch planer, right here's one for $150. Come and get it. Hey, here's a shot of mandolin number 4 with the peg head all cleaned up and the binding slot cut. It's ready for its first piece of binding, so that's what I'm going to do right now. And there's the first piece of peg head binding on mandolin number 4. Now I really feel like I should be working on mandolin number 1 because it is obviously mandolin number 1, but I have all of my tools here set up for 3-ply binding, which is thicker than single-ply binding, and I have 2 mandolins in this batch that need to have 3-ply binding. Number 4 you just got through watching, and number 5 also takes 3-ply binding. So while the tools are still set this way, I'm going to go ahead and start on the 3-ply binding and get all those channels cut, and then I can reset the tools for the thinner single-ply binding. So unfortunately that's kind of how things get leapfrogged around one way or the other, but we're going to go ahead and do this, and then back to mandolin number 1. And that is the first piece of binding on mandolin number 5. And that's it for Thursday. It's way past quitting time, and I'm going to call it a day. And we'll start with mandolin number 1 tomorrow morning. Well, another week is come and gone. It is Friday morning. I didn't get to list all of the things that I wanted to list on the yard sale stuff this week, so we'll put more stuff for the yard sale on next week's video. And as well, on next week's video, we'll have further progress on the peghead binding for all of those mandolins in the front room. And perhaps by the end of the week, next week, we might be able to put stain in the first few coats of finish on the next mandolin. We'll see about that. And it is Independence Day weekend here in America, our 4th of July. We're going to have a big family picnic get-together here in the backyard in the flower garden behind the shop. And we'd like to wish you guys a happy holiday, and we will see you next week on the next episode of the Ratliff Mandolins Weekly Production Diary. See you then.